You think you know the ocean. You've seen it from a beach, maybe from a plane window somewhere over the Pacific, looking down at that wide, flat blue surface stretching in every direction with no end in sight. And if someone asked you right now, how deep is it? You'd probably say something like, really deep, maybe a mile or two, maybe a few kilometers at the most. Here's the problem. You are not even close. And by the time this is over, the ocean is never going to look the same to you again. The ocean covers 71% of this planet, and yet we have mapped less of it than we have mapped the surface of Mars. Mars, a planet sitting 140 million miles away from us, a cold, airless, dead rock that no human has ever physically touched. We know more about the terrain of that planet than we know about what is sitting directly beneath the water you can see right now from any coastline on Earth. That is not a metaphor. That is a documented scientific fact, and it tells you everything about how little we actually understand about the world beneath the surface. So let's fix that today. We are going down, layer by layer, all the way to the absolute bottom of this planet. And what we find along the way is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about the world you live on. Let's start at the surface. Right at 0 meters sea level, the sunlight hits the water and everything looks exactly like you'd imagine. This top layer, from the surface down to about 200 meters, is called the sunlight zone. Sunlight actually penetrates here. Warmth exists here. Coral reefs grow here. Dolphins, sea turtles, whale sharks, manta rays, all of the ocean life that has ever appeared in a documentary, a screensaver, or a school textbook lives in this single layer. This is the ocean humanity knows, the one in the photos, the one people swim in on vacation, the one most people picture when they hear the word ocean. And here's what you need to understand before we go any further. This is only the front door. The sunlight zone, with all of its color, all of its warmth, all of its life, makes up less than 5% of the total ocean by volume. 5%. Every ocean photograph ever taken, every coral reef ever filmed, every nature documentary ever made about the sea, every single image of the ocean that has ever existed in human culture, all of it represents 5% of what's actually here. The other 95% is what we're about to walk through. Past 200 meters, something changes, and not gradually. The light doesn't simply get dimmer, it dies. Within a few hundred meters, you go from bright daylight to a darkness deeper than any room you have ever sat inside. This is the twilight zone, stretching from 200 to 1,000 meters deep. You are in water that is completely black. You cannot see your own hand in front of your face. The temperature has dropped to between 4 and 8 degrees Celsius. The pressure on your body is already 10 times heavier than what you feel standing at the surface right now. I know what you're thinking. The twilight zone actually sounds kind of cool. Let me give you the real picture. The creatures here have adapted to this darkness in ways that should not be biologically possible. The hatchetfish has permanently upward-pointing eyes, because in this layer, the only thing it can ever detect is the faint silhouette of prey moving somewhere above it. Its entire skull evolved over millions of years to see in a single direction, upward, into the last trace of a world it will never visit. The viperfish has teeth so long its mouth physically cannot close. It doesn't need to. It strikes, impales, and holds. Then there is bioluminescence. In the twilight zone, approximately 76% of all species produce their own light. Not because it is beautiful, because in a darkness this complete, light is the only weapon, the only lure, and the only language that still functions down here. Think about what that means. The darkness was so total that millions of completely different species, across millions of separate evolution, all independently arrived at the exact same solution: make your own light or die. We have never needed to evolve anything like that. They did, because their world demanded it. But we are still only at 1,000 meters. We have not even reached the layer most oceanographers consider the beginning of the real deep ocean. Below 1,000 meters is the midnight zone. At this depth, the pressure is approximately 1,500 pounds per square inch. Every square inch of your body, every patch of skin the size of a postage stamp, is being pressed on by 100 full atmospheres of water. A car engine block would implode here. A regulation basketball would compress to the size of a tennis ball. And yet, there is life here. The giant squid lives in the midnight zone, an animal reaching 13 meters in length, 43 feet, with eyes the size of dinner plates. the largest eyes of any animal alive today on Earth. Not dinner plates as an exaggeration, as an actual biological measurement. Eyes that size exists because at this depth, catching a single photon of remaining light is the difference between finding your next meal and starving in total darkness. And here's what makes this animal remarkable beyond its size. We knew the giant squid existed for over a century before any human ever saw one alive. How? Because when sperm whales returned from their deep hunts, their bodies were covered in massive circular scars, suction cup gouges slashed across their heads and torsos. The whale had clearly been in a fight with something enormous, something armed, something we had never seen. For more than 100 years, the giant squid was a legend held together entirely by physical evidence left on the bodies of its predators. Scientists studied it only through what sperm whales left behind in their stomachs, specifically the one part of a squid that resists digestion completely, its solid beak. Some individual whales were found carrying over 18,000 of these beaks at once. 18,000 confirmed kills from a single predator in a zone no human could enter. Now let me give you a real sense of the scale we are dealing with, because numbers alone do not work here. The average depth of the ocean, not the deepest point, just the average, is 3,688 meters. The Burj Khalifa, the tallest building ever built by human hands, stands at 828 meters. To reach the average ocean floor, you would need to stack 4.5 Burj Khalifas on top of each other and then descend past all of them into total darkness, lethal pressure, and water hovering just above freezing that never changes. That is average. Now, if you took every single mountain on Earth, every peak on every continent, and piled them into the ocean trying to fill it, the ocean would still not be full. That is how much water we are dealing with. And we have still not reached the bottom. Past the midnight zone is the abyssal zone, 4,000 to 6,000 meters deep. Pressure here exceeds 8,000 pounds per square inch. A human body at this depth would not drown or freeze. It would be compressed within seconds. And yet the abyssal zone covers more surface area than every continent on Earth combined. The most hostile, most lethal environment on this planet is also its largest, and we have explored less than 20% of it. But even the abyss is not the bottom. The deepest confirmed point on Earth is called the Challenger Deep. It sits inside the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean and measures 10,935 meters below the surface, almost 11 kilometers straight down. Here's what that number actually means, in terms you can hold. Take Mount Everest, 8,849 meters tall, a mountain that has killed hundreds of experienced climbers, a mountain requiring weeks of preparation and supplemental oxygen just to survive near its peak. Drop it into the Challenger Deep. The entire mountain disappears beneath the surface, and the peak of Everest would still be sitting more than 2 kilometers underwater. The whole mountain, swallowed, with room to spare. Only 22 people in all recorded human history have reached the Challenger Deep. Over 600 people have traveled to space. More than 300 have stood on the summit of Everest. More humans have walked on the surface of the moon than have descended to the deepest point of the ocean they were born on. 22 people. When James Cameron reached the bottom in a specially built one-man submarine in 2012, he described it as a completely alien world, flat, gray, desolate, fine sediment in every direction, near total absence of visible life. But near total is not total. Scientists have since found amphipods at the Challenger Deep, tiny shrimp-like crustaceans, thriving and reproducing at 11,000 meters. Animals so adapted to extreme pressure that the comparatively light environment of the surface would now kill them. Evolution ran so far in one direction that returning became impossible. And then there's the thing that stops every ocean scientist mid-sentence: plastic. Human plastic waste, bags, fragments, synthetic fibers, found at the deepest point on Earth, in a location no human visited until 1960, in a place harder to reach than the surface of the moon. We had never been there. Our pollution had beaten us there. Here's what you should take from all of this. We talk about space like it is the last great frontier. We point billion-dollar telescopes at galaxies forming 13 billion years in the past. We land rovers on Mars and stream it live and call it exploration. All of that is genuinely extraordinary. But beneath the ocean covering 71% of this planet, the planet you were born on, the planet your species has called home for 300,000 years, there are mountain ranges never seen by human eyes, ecosystems never observed, creatures that may be larger than anything ever cataloged living in darkness so complete and pressure so immense that our best technology still barely reach them. The deep ocean is not just unexplored. It is, by almost any honest scientific measure, the least understood environment in the history of human knowledge. And it's right here, below us, right now. The next time you stand at the edge of the water and think you are looking at the ocean, you are not. You are looking at the surface of something that hasn't been named yet, something vast, something ancient, something that has existed in silence at the bottom of this planet since long before the first human ever opened their eyes. And we have barely even started looking.